Hey, what's up, everyone? I wanted to do a quick video on some interview tips and tricks to land your dream job. I know right now the job market's kind of crazy, as always, but I've got some things that I've learned over the past that I do believe will, at least provide some perspective and maybe help you out in a couple different areas. All right, so here are the tips, and I'm going to go a little more in depth with each of these, but just to give you an idea of what we're going to talk about. Number one is going to be prepared. You'll find what works for you through doing more interviews or, asking questions. Research, asking great questions, working with recruiters, closing your next steps, and sending a thank you letter. So I have been in the workforce for 18 plus years, various levels. I've been everything from a driver to an executive to management, all sorts of things. So I am and always will be a serial interviewer for various reasons. But when you're a serial learner or interviewer, sorry, you learn more about what people are looking for throughout every interview. So hopefully some of these tips can help you land that job of your dreams. So be prepared. Ahead of your interview, one of the things that I've realized works really, really well for me is I write out a list. You'll always see notepads over here. I write out a list of all the words, phrases, accomplishments that I'd like to touch on. So because you're not controlling the interview, it's not your interview, you never know which direction it's going to go. But what I found is impactful is if I'm writing these things down, I know that after I wrote it down, I can read it over and over and over, get it fresh in my brain. So then when a question comes up, that I can slide that word in. Like my number one word is value. I add value to every interaction and relationship that I have in this world. Or that's my attempt. That's what I like to do. So adding value, growing the business, different things, different projects you've done, have those on a list so that you make sure you touch on those. Review your resume and make sure you can address any questions about it. Some of these seasoned hiring managers, they're going to take a look and they're going to ask you questions. And if your stuff's not up to date, how are you going to explain that? Or, well, now he sounds like someone wrote it for him. Has he ever even read his own resume, or has she ever read her own resume? Right? That's automatically a negative in that interview. If your meeting is virtual, clear out your background or blur it so that the focus remains on the conversation. Currently, we're not in an interview, so I'm not too worried about it. But if I was in an interview, I'd probably blur this out just so that the focus remains here and it's not seeing all the cool stuff I've got going on that I enjoy. Find some music, some podcasts, or something else that can get you mentally prepared for the conversation. And treat the interview just like that, a conversation. If it's books, cool. If it's music, cool. For me personally, I listen to the Rewire podcast by Ryan Stewman. That makes me want to go run through a wall and absolutely take on the world. It's over 1,000 episodes or something, so I can pretty much listen for a lot of time, and it kind of just gets me in that headspace, gets me mentally prepared. I grew up an athlete, and music was the thing, but now we're talking about going and getting the job of my dreams or having the meeting of my dreams. I want something that's going to get me in the right frame of mind to say, let's go, let's kill it. Dress like the CEO. Casual role or not, this piece is still very critical to people, to the right people at least. I wouldn't be interviewing in this, but I think that that's evident. It's an old school mentality, shirt, tie, jacket, all that good stuff. But as you're leveling up, and me personally, you show a lot of pride in yourself and how you come in. And so when I was a manager, yeah, you only get one opportunity to make a first impression. And so if you don't look your best or you don't look like you care about yourself, probably not going to care for their company or care about their company, right? So go back to the old school mentality. Casual role or not, what does it hurt to put on a shirt and tie for an interview, or a blouse, ladies, or whatever? I don't know how to consider some of the clothing. But anyway, look great. Look like you want the job. Research. Do your research. This is absolutely crucial. Do your research. Research the company that you're interviewing for. What stands out and what intrigues you. Write it out in a separate sheet with your questions. We'll get to questions here in a second. But you're going to have your pad of paper that has your interview questions that you're fully prepared to ask. If you're doing your research, one of the things I always look at is company core values. So, what are their core values? Now I'm going to make sure that it makes sense when I read their reviews, their employee reviews. Like, does it seem to match up? Because honestly, any company can tell you anything to get you to come in the door and work for them, and then you're mad in a month and you're looking for another job already. Understanding not all reviews are going to be accurate. Some people are just disgruntled employees, whatever. But at the end of the day, you can start to kind of collect some dots there and put them together. And that's part of why I've adopted that name. The architect is like, I analyze everything. And it's a huge part of my life. I analyze and evaluate everything, from the decisions I make to everything. So does it look like these core values? Because everyone's going to write positive core values. No one's going to write a mission statement that has negative core values and be like, hey, I want you to work for me. So you've got to sift through a little bit of the BS and make sure that it looks like it fits what you're looking for. Research the person or persons interviewing you. You may see a panel, you may see one person, and most often in professional instances, they're going to have a LinkedIn. So get on their LinkedIn, try to find that common ground. Oh, you went to Ball State for college in sports medicine? Talk sports. Oh, yeah. Even if you don't necessarily discuss that you saw what they posted or liked on LinkedIn, see what they posted or liked. Bring up something relatable to that. Research company reviews. I just talked about that. Not everything's going to be full on accurate, but at the end of the day, you'll start to see some tendencies if you really read over some of those things. Research the market that the company's in. So if it's manufacturing, and why I'm telling you this piece, you'll see it in the next couple slides, but research the market that the company's in. So for me, it'd be a lot of times it's sales. Okay, so what's sales? Well, sales in the tech space. Okay, let's look at tech space. So really get down to the nitty gritty so you can have some engaging educational conversations about these things throughout this conversation. Otherwise, you just sound like a person that's here to get a job. Just here to collect a base paycheck, not really help the company. Ask great questions. So I'd say have 5 great questions set up for yourself. I do plan to maybe come up with a few and post them on the YouTube, maybe in the comment section or something, so that anybody can pull and draw and keep these. But I did put a few of them, or a couple of them up here, just to give you a thought process, maybe help you with how to go about it. So, turn yourself into the interviewer, asking great questions and show that you're genuinely interested in a critical piece of the growth. You're not just a person who's there for a paycheck. A lot of people, and as you're leveling up, these questions are going to be much more thorough, more difficult. They're going to be much better. But anybody can come in and ask subpar questions. So, how's the health insurance? So, do we get paid every week or every 2 weeks, right? Like, that's so surface level. I've heard them before. I promise I've heard them before. But now I can't even imagine asking those questions on an interview. And it's because as you're progressing in your career, your questions and everything else around you should be progressing as well. So, what is your 3 to 5 year vision of the position, company, and how do you see me contributing to this? That's a question that shows you're genuinely interested in growing with the company and what you can do to help it. This is one of my favorite ones. If I were to start tomorrow, what's the number one thing I could do to add value to the team? I love that question because majority of the time you're at the end of the conversation when this happens. So all that they know about you at this point, they're going to tell you, honestly, if you just come in coachable like you've been showing or talking about, and you bring that passion, that fire, that this, so you're checking boxes while you're asking these things. And you can really get a good gauge on stuff. Another question, when looking into you, the company, the industry, I noticed whatever has impacted, or whatever has happened, gone on, has this impacted you or the organization in a positive or negative way? And how could I help with this? Right? You're offering up your services. How can I do this? When you're asked, or when you're given the opportunity to ask questions, do this every single time. I do have a couple questions, but before I get to my questions, is there anything that you need clarification on or that I didn't cover? Please let me know. Puts the ball back in their court. It shows them that you're making sure you're not just skimming through and hoping that they heard everything the way that you properly said it. They may have 4 or 5 questions, and I've ran into that in the past. So make sure that you ask them before you start asking your questions when it's your time. Before I do that, is there anything I haven't covered? Anything maybe making you a little skeptical? You can address it right there. You could win the job right there, because something that may have had you on the outs could bring you back in where they're like, oh, okay, I misunderstood, or how they presented it was not the way I took it. Working with recruiters. So I've been back and forth on this one a lot until pretty recently. And, your job is to get through the first step and sell the recruiter on who you are and what you bring to the table. It's their job to get you through the door. The ATS, applicant tracking system, makes this a very difficult task for job seekers right now. If you do not know what it is, the ATS is like a wall. You submit resume to company has this ATS sitting, waiting. It doesn't find any keywords. Company never sees your resume because it automatically declines you. You can try the tricks and find the buzzwords and all that good stuff. A lot of extra effort, and they're all going to be different. But when you're working with a recruiter, they've already got established relationships with these companies they're working with. They've already got the ability to sell you to the company. So, example, I worked with a recruiter 2 weeks ago. We had a conversation. Great conversation. He said, hey, I want to line you up. I feel like you're a good fit. Can you shoot me your resume? I said, sure can. Here's the thing. My resume is kind of trash. Here's why. I do all my own stuff. Like I haven't paid for it. As I've progressed in my life, there was a point in time where I started just doing my own things. And he said, that's fine. It's up to me to get you to the president. So fast forward a week, I end up getting the meeting. The president and I are sitting on the call, and he said, I'm not going to lie. I first looked at your resume, wasn't impressed. He said, but your recruiter did his job. And he told me, like, you really want to have a conversation with this person. So sure enough, he told me, he said, I'm glad he did. I'm actually very impressed. He said, but here's what didn't impress me. Your resume made you look like a one-trick pony. Perfect. It goes in my brain. Now I know my resume made me look like a one-trick pony. I'm going to go and tailor that so it looks like I have some diversity, because he said, I noticed from the time we got on this call, you're different than what your resume showed me you were. Sometimes we just can't talk about ourselves well enough, or we don't know necessarily what they want to hear or say or see or whatever. So just make sure you're paying attention to that. And I would always recommend working with a recruiter. They'll give you insights to what a company is looking for in a role. So if it doesn't work out with that one, you still have that information in the future to go to your next interview. Again, I'm a serial interviewer for many different reasons. One of them's building my network, but I got some feedback from another recruiter a few weeks ago. And this, I think this is a huge tip for you, and it should be back here. I'll go back, asking great questions. And so what he told me to do is halfway through the call, do a temperature check. Put yourself in that role and say, I've heard you say X, Y, and Z. So if I start next week and I come in, how do you see me contributing? Or how do you see me building your brand? Or how do you see something that you've put yourself in that role? And then what you do is you'll wait for the feedback. And what the hiring manager is going to say is, listen, the person in this role, I feel like they're going to do X or Y or Z. I feel like they're going to have this skill set. Or they're going to say, I think when you come in, you're going to be able to do this, this, and this right away, especially if you say you are who you say you are. What did I just learn there? In the second part, I learned that he's already or she's already leaning on giving me the opportunity. In the first part, sounded like they were going elsewhere. So knowing that, and I'm halfway through the conversation, I know if I have to turn the heat up and really have to push and sell myself. I know if I have to ask better questions. I know if I have to drive this home, if this is a job I want. But if I don't ask that question and it gets to the end, now we're out of time, well, that person's going to another meeting and you become a thing of the past, right? So ask that temperature check question halfway through the interview process and see where you stand. I can assure you that part's going to be valuable for you. And one thing I skipped over, recruiters do work with multiple companies a lot of times, and so they do have a network. So if you make a great impact, positive impact on that recruiter, you may not be the fit for this role, but they may have another couple, or they're going to keep your name somewhere handy. Closing on the next steps. One of your questions should be, how quickly are you planning to fill the role? And what are the next steps? Personally, I try to hit on this multiple times throughout the interview process. Here's why. Regardless of what the case may be, you want to secure that next meeting with the hiring manager or the decision maker, or what else you need to understand, what else needs to be done before we sign on the line. This is the job you want. Remember that. This isn't just going and getting a part-time summer camp job. This is for the job you want. So you should be giving your all, meaning closing on every attempt to get that next step. Once you understand the process, let them know that you're available this week, next week. Here's the time frames. This is where I'm at. Depending on the role, this may be a test for you, and you can easily fail just by not hitting the key aspect in this process. I know of a couple different sales jobs that I've interviewed for where recruiters have told me you need to close them on the next step. Like, they will legitimately play with you, pretend as if they have no interest. Yeah, we'll get back to you. You need to close them. You need to get that next, because you're showing them how bad you want it. You're showing them that you have the abilities that they're looking for to be persistent, to get the job done. Not just, well, thanks for the casual time and taking some time out of your day, and let me know if there's anything you need from me. You're showing them that you're proactive as opposed to reactive. That's going to speak volumes, I promise. Don't leave the meeting without asking for and attempting to close next steps. And in my opinion, if you don't do it on the first, I would say try 3 times throughout the call. Like I said, you'll find what works for you. It may be after the first initial discussion, you find it very helpful to say, hey, just so I understand, how long is it, how quick are you looking to fill this role? Just so I have a better understanding. Well, now you've already pointed out that you're genuinely curious on this, and then you can try to close it throughout the process. Send a thank you letter. This is critical. Not many people do it. Well, depends on the profession, but it's definitely undervalued. Send a thank you letter. Ask for their email as part of the interview unless you already have it. If you did a virtual meeting, you probably already have it in the invite. Ask for their email. Some hiring managers, and I know this for a fact, again, through my serial interviewing, some hiring managers will not hire anyone that doesn't send a thank you letter. They will not. So, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, doesn't have to be anything crazy. Hey, Jeff, it was really great to hear your team's plans to grow the business by business revenue by X over the next year. I am really looking forward to being a part of that. So I've just let them know, I hear what you're trying to do. I'm looking forward to doing that with you all. Another thing, if you have, let's say you guys talked about the Philadelphia Eagles. Hey, I understand they're having I know your Eagles are having a tough time, Jeff, but I really hope that they can turn it around by the end of the season and we can have a chat about this, over some coffee, right? I don't even drink coffee, but I'm just telling you what most of the world could say. And then if they bring up their kids, they have 4 kids. One of them's playing basketball right now. Hey, hope your kid has a great game next week. Say things to make it personal. Say things to show you were listening. When you do send that letter, if you have not closed the next steps, when you do send that letter, if you have not closed the next steps, reiterate, I'm available these times, and also just had this spot open up too if that works best for you. In sales, we call it the assumptive close. You're already assuming you have the meeting, even though they haven't told you. Close the deal. So in summary, when you set yourself apart in ways that the other candidates do, you offer a breath of fresh air for the teams looking to hire. So going back to my management experience, somebody came in with unique phrases or just a quirky attitude or something different that made them memorable. The consideration's there. But if everybody walked in with the same clothes on, with the same stale tactics of just answering my questions that I ask, and we're not having a conversation and it doesn't feel like a real thing, they're just going to go in the bucket with everybody else. So, if you really, really, truly want to give them a different perspective of you, then you will stand out for sure. Doing these tips has helped me tremendously. Honestly, a lot of times I get the response of, I'm overqualified. I wish companies would leave that to me if I'm overqualified or not, but at the end of the day, I hope some of these tips do help you. And there's all my contact information. So feel free to shoot me an email. Check out the personal site. I know I have the links in there, so it looks stupid because, whatever. Follow me or connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Facebook, or check out the YouTube. We're going to continue to put up videos like this throughout the year just to try and give different tips and tricks on ways to really live a better life. Really look at changing some of the old behaviors, old ways of doing things, and honestly, really looking at giving yourself an advantage. We live in a world where experience can definitely outweigh education at times. So I know that, there are 19-year-olds out making millions of dollars just by posting Facebook memes and doing weird stuff, right? And if we're still stuck in our ways of, here's the only way to do things, you show up, you fill out the paper, you wave goodbye, and you wait for a call, you'll be waiting for that call for a while, right? So I'm hoping this can help everyone in the job search. If you do have any questions, feedback, comments, additional things that, maybe you do for interviews that really help get your mind right and stuff. Happy to see those and maybe work on some of those myself. So really hope everybody has a great day and a great start to the new year so far, and good luck in your job search.